gotta keep pushing on.
Just sitting here reminiscing, man. Gotta keep pushing on. Who remember growing up eating cornflakes? Spending the night at granny house cause mama on a date. So you ate what you ate and you ate it quick. Cause you knew your grandma, she ain't played it. Paw, he stayed in another house with another woman. She a brick house. Growing up fast was a show. It's a few things I learned from the get-go. A few folks in my fam fell down. Then they got their feet back on solid ground and came back around and showed me how to fail. See, there's a lesson every time I take a L. Dead or in jail, that's the fairy tale. What I know about it, I know it very well. That's why I don't stop, won't stop, can't quit. Keep pushing, making that dope.
Through the good and the bad, whether happy or sad, trying to stand as a man, you gotta keep pushing on. We will see what they do. Keep your head up and move. Love will always come through.
I shoot. Through hella high water, keep my confidence on the level. Let my family support me. It could be me against whoever. Say I'm canceled, I say even better. Man, who gon' tell them? Your opinion doesn't validate me. I've been in my hood, can't get no better. Could never intimidate me. Trap music say we geniuses. Politics say we crazy. Man, I was selling, yeah, when Brenda had a baby. With nothing but hip-hop to come and save me. And I just got there on the pavement, trying to find a way to make some payment. Half heard a deal when they came in. Selling pounds of reefer was strange then. For 8,000, they gave me 10 on. Showed to make it, made 20 off the same 10. All I lied, we were taught to just hold the pain in. Imitate Neanderthals and copy cavemen. Can't teach a man how to make it with a hand out. Fitting in, keep pushing until you stand out. Yeah.
Through the good and the bad, whether happy or sad, trying to stand as a man, you gotta keep pushing on. We will see what they do. Keep your head up and move. Love will always come through. You gotta keep pushing on. Through the good and the bad, whether happy or sad, trying to stand as a man, you gotta keep pushing on. We will see what they do. Keep your head up and move. Love will always come through. You gotta keep pushing on.
Peace, everybody. It is a guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business with Benefits. And to my right, I have my friend Erika Love. How you doing, Erika Atkins? How do you love? I see love right there. Change your name automatically.
I am Erika Atkins, affectionately known as Coach Love. I'll take it all day long.
That's fine as long as you take it. All right. Well, thank you for folks watching us. Let us know if you're hashtag team live, hashtag team replay, however you consume the content. We appreciate it. Thank you to our LinkedIn family watching. Thank you to our YouTube family. And please, I will call you out in the comments if I don't see a comment. But Erika and I met by way of my good friend Marcello Archuleta. He's watching in the comments. Saw her on a couple of his shows, and then she jumped on Link Lunch a few weeks ago. And I said, hey, let's talk about this stuff you have going on here. So Erika, for the people that don't know who you are, let them know who you are and your gift for the world.
All right. My name is Erika Atkins. I am a career advancement coach, and I'm also the host of a show called Epic Understanding, where we interview newsmakers, top professionals, and average Joes who are having a superhero moment, like me right now.
Ooh, a superhero moment. I like that. I'm the bow tie superhero, so I'll take it.
Yeah, there you go. I'm having a superhero moment with you, and you're definitely a superhero.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, speaking of people besides myself, let me catch these comments up right here. We got Marcello Archuleta saying, let's get the party started. So Marcello is ready.
You know, if Marcello's around, it's actually always a party.
Pretty much. That's how he is. And we got my good friend Marlon Scotty's Team Live representing Texas. Thank you, Marlon, for jumping in here.
Hi, Marlon.
So today, the title of this show was Positive Masculinity. Now, I teased this show with the phrase mental health. I don't think I heard until in my mid-20s, and I think the first time was actually Juno. The movie Juno came out in 2007. And there was a comment in the movie where I forgot the actor's name, but he said, "I'm taking a mental health day," and it was a punchline in the show. It wasn't like a regular statement, normal everyday thing. It was a punchline for like, "Yeah, I skipped school. I needed a mental health day," and it was a joke. So fast forward 15 years later, mental health is like an everyday word right now, but positive masculinity might not be. So for people that haven't heard that phrase, what is positive masculinity?
Positive masculinity is productive human behavior performed through male actions. That's really what it is. It's not a trick. It's not, something nefarious. It's not a way to tamp down real masculinity. It is about men being positive and being recognized for their productive actions. Recognizing that this idea of being an alpha male, you could be that if you want to use that term, but how about highlight the idea that alpha males are leaders and consolers in chief? They're not the bully on the schoolyard. And even when I think of the term alpha male, I kind of cringe, but I use it because it's prevalent in society today. But really, the gentleman that created the term, which is David Meach, he said um, it doesn't actually exist in human society, and he pulled back from its existence in wolves. So this whole idea of being an alpha male came from the wolf pack
Yep.
idea. Hmm.
This is why
So,
these old tenets are bad for us. When I think about, both of us are African American, obviously people can tell. The
mhm,
phrase "a strong black man, strong black woman." I want to retire those phrases because they've caused a detriment to us by just
mhm.
following this old methodology, much like this wolf comment. So go ahead, expand some more on that.
And so, quite honestly, I I use the term alpha male because people understand it, but every time I use it, I go into explaining how it right now is just a social construct that we pulled from a ideology that is debunked even by the author of that particular ideology, and it got even more popularized by Fran Duvall and his chimpanzee politics. But even he is trying to, rephrase it and restructure it. So if we insist on using this ideology, we've got to start getting it right. I can accept it as a social construct. What I can't accept is that men aren't men if they're not being aggressive. I can't accept it.
Mm. Yes, as a child of the '80s, I remember this strongly around the '90s when gangster rap became a thing. Tupac became the sex symbol of Black America, and if you weren't that, you were losing. If you weren't
Hmm.
spitting at people, bandana, really tough, you just were
Hmm.
losing. And that still kind of perpetuates today. But you're a female, so what made you decide I want to focus on positive masculinity?
You know, um, I'll tell you what took me on this journey. So I've always had a heart for just people in general. But as I
Mm-hmm.
was on this, with my podcast, I started interviewing men and listening to men's hearts. And they started telling me about how they feel like they can't be heard and they feel like they can't cry. And I started to reflect on this idea that men are told that they can't cry. They are told things like
Mm-hmm.
that, and even by their moms, they're told stuff like, you're not going to be real man. You're not going to be a man if you're sitting up there whining, crying. Stop whining. What are you whining about? If you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Toughen up.
Yep.
All this kind of language that men are told by women and men by their moms and their dads. Um, I did like a survey within a group, and only 3% said that they felt comfortable crying when they simply felt sad. And then, although a larger number of men said that they felt comfortable uh, crying, it was only at like special events, like if somebody died,
Hmm.
right?
I can get with that a lot. I mean, I think the first time I could remember as past 16 crying in front of my father was probably when my mom was sick 7 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 41 now, so that kind of shows you like I just didn't. I don't think I saw my dad cry in front of me until when my mom passed. That's probably the only time I saw him, and he's in his 60s. I don't think I ever saw him cry in front of me for anything. So, and it wasn't almost. I don't think it was so much just saying don't cry as I wasn't modeled that. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get that experience of like, oh, it's okay to do that. So as an adult, that's a challenge. Where I mentioned in the post previously, I didn't think about mental health till my 20s, and really didn't think about it now till late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So with all that going on, this is a huge undertaking for you to talk about positive masculinity.
I love it.
What is
You
it?
know what? I'm having I'm having the best time talking about positive masculinity. One of my first events, which I'm going to have next year, was a fashion show of all things for men. But it was the coolest one because it was the bearded mug contest, and it was to highlight positive masculinity. And it was really simply with guys with beards, much like yours, posing with their coffee mugs in support of positive masculinity. Anyway, it took off like wildfire. The guys loved it because they got to be, highlighted for their beauty, so to speak. And the
Right.
girls loved it because girls like beards. Just saying.
Wait, speaking of girls liking beards, let me catch up with some men and women that commented real quick. We got Ruby. She's a mom, dad, or a dad mom. I'm gonna say a boy mom. A boy mom. She's on Team Live from Boston. We got Marlon, a Sigma representing for a Kappa. So thank you for this
All
Sigma for
right.
giving us Kappa love. Appreciate you, Marlon. And then Stephanie Kursky. She said Ferris Bueller's Day Off is the movie that line is from, the Alpha Male. So she must have heard that from Ferris Bueller's Day Off is from the
Okay.
Alpha Male line. And my queen representing for Team Live. Thank you, Queen, for representing for us here. And lastly, we had Ruby actually had a comment. First, we are not wolves. Second, they have never not been able to live up to these crazy civilization or societal constructs they have created. Yeah, I mean, wolves don't have to deal with shaming as much as and
Mhm.
stuff like this. So it is interesting we use that phrase of alpha male, but none of the things we experience wolves really go through.
Mhm. Let me ask you something.
Go
This
for
is
it.
a current question. What is your intrinsic value as a man beyond protecting, providing, and sexual conquest?
Probably for me, it's lasting experiences. Like I want to make sure there's something to remember. Like I'm not big on stuff,
Hmm.
so an intrinsic values that I give my kids and my wife experiences that they can have whenever when I'm not sitting there, when I'm right next to them, 5 years from now when I'm gone. Just
Hmm.
actual experiences to hold on to versus dad give us a bunch of stuff.
Hmm. And so, although I really appreciate that answer, I like that answer, but it is not an answer about you. That is a
Ooh,
answer about what you provide.
true. Hmm.
You can't give me an answer that includes what you provide.
So an intrinsic value for me, that's a good question now. Put me on the spot. An intrinsic value for me is peace. I like peace. That's something that's important to me. That there's peace around me,
Hmm.
whether I cause it or not. Just that there's peace in my presence. I guess my
Hmm.
mom's name meant peace, so that's something that kind of stuck with me. I
Oh,
think.
really? Wow. What's
Yeah,
your
her
mom?
name's Irene. Irene, and that means peace also. So that's why I didn't
Ah,
know until as an adult, but I found that I was like, no wonder mom was so chill all the time and stuff like that.
oh, that's beautiful. I'm so happy that I was able to find that out. I will say this, when I ask women that question about being a woman, they are able to talk about their characteristics as a human being. Okay.
Okay.
They're able to talk about being a human. When I ask men that question, they struggle so they just struggle. And I say that is because somehow being a man, being a real man, being a good man, being masculine has somehow been detached from being human. I want to get those back melted together. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to lift men up and let them know it is okay to be human, to have feelings, to have emotions, to enjoy your characteristics that are just, unique to you. Those
Mm-hmm.
things are okay. And the reason why that's so important, because we are in a society, and we've been there a very long time, where men are committing suicide um, at like an extremely high rate. And it's not just in America, it's worldwide. And
Mm-hmm.
I attest that this is because when they cannot provide, when they cannot protect, and they cannot obtain their sexual conquest, they feel devalued. So they look towards taking their own life, or sometimes taking other people's lives. And that's a real challenge.
Yeah, I
That,
mean, if you look at the military, I mean, my dad's retired military, but he's had friends do that and stuff like that. And another colleague of mine is an ex-cop, and he's mentioned things with cop friends of his, and those are probably the most masculine positions
mhm.
really in today's society. And once they're done, something happens on their watch or they're retired or something, that does happen a lot. So, do you think the pandemic has kind of sped that up or kept it the same?
I think the pandemic has highlighted it quite a bit. If there is a problem, if there was a problem in society, what the pandemic did was blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was in existence before, it's bigger now. It's more in our face right
So I
now.
got a question for you then. When you talk about positive masculinity, um, let's look at the female side. How do women perceive negative masculinity? How do they deal with it when they see negative masculinity? What is the typical relationship signs or things you notice that when you know a man has negative masculinity, things you've seen women dealing with in that situation?
First of all, I want to say that women have a part in this process um, as well. I talked about how sometimes women talk to their sons in a way that cause them not to be in touch with their feelings. I
Mm-hmm.
also understand that women tr- raise boys and not men sometimes, so they baby them. And then at the same time, when there is a absence of a man in the household and the woman is not prepared for it, note that I'm saying the woman is not mentally and emotionally prepared for it. The woman will sometimes try to make this little boy be her big man. And so they force manhood on this child, and they turn them into their man. All of those things are really bad things to do. Now, to be specific on how women respond to um, toxic masculinity, I want to uh, also say I prefer to highlight positive masculinity, but if we're going to talk about toxic behavior, I think sometimes women are attracted to it. Um, they really are. Sometimes they manipulate it, and then some women run away from it as
Okay.
well. So, what can be a response that women have in the dating sense to toxic masculinity? And it's really toxic human behavior, but it's expressed through a man. So the exact same man that wants to know where you are and what you're doing and says he's just checking up on you all the time, kind of too early in the dating process, and it feels like attention, is the exact same man a year into the relationship, is controlling whether or not you can go to your girlfriend's house because you felt like it on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That's that same man. So it starts off
Mm-hmm.
small, but it ends up big, and then he does do very chivalrous and kind things. He sends you flowers to your job, even though you never gave him the address to where you work. Ah!
That,
You
that's
know?
that sounds like a creepy one there. Yeah.
Well, it is. It does get creepy. But before I go down that line, I really want to highlight men that I see doing marvelous things and being positive. For instance, Dr. Robert Norris was, I'm sorry, Dr. Norris Roberts was on my show last week, and he told his personal story of how he took care of his mom, his
Hmm.
dad, and his father in law. Okay. Now he's a Generation Xer, so that means that he had a kid in college. His daughter actually got got pregnant, um, and so he was busy being grandpa. He was busy being dad, and he was busy being a nurturer to his parents. Okay, this is
That's a lot.
huge. And he did it for a very long time. So if that's not being a real man, I don't know what is. But can he get credit for that regarding his manhood? I want to see him get credit for that. I want to see him get man of the year, father of the year, son of the year for those kinds of things. But somehow nurturing isn't being a real man. And I think it is.
And that's also a weird challenge. That this is kind of a dichotomy for men and women. That when fathers step in to do that stuff, women
Mhm.
sometimes get jaded. Like, why is he getting all this praise for changing the diaper for a whole day or taking the kids or whatever or something like that? And that's that fine line I think with the positive masculinity, because it should be okay to do it sometimes if you don't do it all the time. But at the same time, women kind of
Yeah.
feel, like, why don't I get a prize?
Well, it's not necessarily a prize, so to speak. What I described was kind of extreme circumstances, right?
Yeah, stepping up.
Stepping up and
Hmm.
balancing all of that. Do I think you get patted on the head for changing a diaper? No, change the diaper. You should change the diaper. I think men
Right.
deserve just as much credit for changing the diaper as women deserve for going to work. Get it done.
Yep.
Okay?
Right.
It's just something that you're going to do it and get it done. That's that note. Um, but on the focusing on again positive
Yeah,
masculinity,
the positive
I
side.
I think that there is something that men can honestly do to propel this among themselves. I interviewed a group of men last week, and I had an eye popping, mind blowing moment. And it is this um, men need love from other men, but respect from women. And I'm currently doing a poll to see if people agree or disagree with that. Currently, I'm running at 70% of agreement on Twitter. So I'm like, hey, maybe I'm on to something here because I was asking, well, why do men need respect from women? Not that I don't know that, but I wanted them to answer the question. And he said these days so much it's because of the fatherhood wound that men didn't get love from their dad. And I don't know if I agree with this statement, but I do find it powerful. Stephen Jared Jordan, he said this on there. He said that respect is the foster parent for love. I said, what? He said, he said respect is the foster parent of love. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I get that. And I said, what does that mean? And he said men will take respect if they can't get love. And then we went down this road and I was like, well, is that from women too? I said, I've been in church. I've been taught just the opposite from many a preacher. You got to break this down for me. And then that's
Hmm.
how we kind of came up with this idea that men really need love, support, affirmation, confirmation from other men. That's who they need to give them love. And then, oh, okay, hey, I'm getting some agreement out there. I love it. I
Adding to
love
your
it.
poll, right?
Yes. And they really need that from other men because there is so much just pain going through life. And right now, particularly, what a man is kind of shaky. It's not what it was in
Oh yeah.
1920. And and the definition of a man, it's not what it was in 1970. It's not what it was in
Yeah,
1990.
please hit some reactions if you guys agree with that. Please hit some reactions. I was talking to my dad about this a while ago, and I said something like, "Hey, I think I'm failing as a father. This is just hard." He's like, "You're doing way more than I did because I was in the military and he was gone half the time being deployed or something." And he's like, "I was here and there. Your mom was chasing you around and everything. So the fact that you're working at home and you're there." And even when you weren't working at home, you was there more than I was. You're way more of a dad than I am. But I had a feeling that I wasn't because of the new version of dad is you're everywhere.
Hmm.
And that's the challenge. And moms have had that for a long time too, but I think the challenge is the provider part. If you're the provider piece and you got to be everywhere, even women struggle with that. Like, how do I provide for the family and be everywhere at the same time? So I saw my own father seeing the difference with he thinks I'm doing great, but I'm like, no, 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 no. I feel like I'm sucking.
Hmm. Hmm. And so men just they me saying that you're doing a good job does not quite sound the same as another man giving you that affirmation.
Yeah, I can see that because I mean, I think even in my own personal life, I want my wife to respect me just because peer to peer kind of like we're in the family
Hmm.
together, taking care of things together. That would be respect, but I just kind of expect love
Right.
from a degree
Exactly.
from a marriage. But
Right.
the my father, like I don't expect, and that sounds kind of harsh to say that, but I would love from him seems different because he's gonna have to respect me. He's my dad. I
Hmm.
don't know if he has to respect me, but the love from another man or even my neighbor across the street, like that's cool to have love from a neighbor versus like you expect respect from the
Hmm.
outside world maybe, and that's probably where that phrase I think comes from. At least from what I heard from what you said.
Right. And so I just that was so eye opening. I'm going to tell you something that I noticed though. Who's really doing a good job of putting their arm around other men? I don't know if I want to be highlighted saying this because it's not something I want to happen. Toxic organizations are using love in order to connect and bring men together. What do I
Yeah,
mean?
I know
What do
where you're
I
going with
mean?
this.
Yeah, I mean gangs, um,
Yep.
motorcycle, clubs, and I'm not talking about the kind that raise money. Okay, I'm talking about the outlaw,
Yeah.
gangs, and even, oh God, even
Yeah. I'll say
like,
QAnon.
okay,
That's
that too,
that's a big
that
one.
too, cute. What's that other one? There's another one that's a man's group. Oh
Oh,
God.
Oath Keepers.
Oath Keepers, yeah. But all of those organizations are just bringing men together and using this connectivity in order to build men up, but it's building their mind up against the family and against women as well. You have MGTOW, men going their own way. They're a incel group, and incel is involuntarily celibate. As a matter of fact, they are a known as a terrorist group. They're against women.
This period.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, they're involuntarily celibate, and so they're getting kind of to be a terrorist organization. I think I shared a video with you that we could share with the audience. They might find that
Yeah, I'll
interesting.
put it up. And real quick, Stephanie Kersey actually said this is a very old conversation, unfortunately, yet very relevant. So it's something that's
Mm-hmm.
been happening for years. But it's like you said, COVID has kind of shown things. So let's put this up here real quick to show this to the audience. This plan.
The Secret Service released a study this week on the growing terrorism threat of the so-called incel movement. Incel is short for involuntarily celibate. Adherents call themselves anti-feminist. The report says followers of the incel movement blame acts of violence on an inability to form relationships with women. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga. So, Nicole, reading your reporting on this, these details are chilling. First of all, what are the origins of this movement and how has it evolved?
Yeah, Elaine, in the late 1990s, a Canadian woman actually created this internet peer support forum. It was kind of the safe place for people who wanted a relationship to seek support from others who were experiencing similar social awkwardness, mental illness, or overall disenfranchisement. But as the incel movement expanded, its membership really evolved into something a lot darker. And by 2000, young heterosexual men exhibiting more aggressive views towards women overtook this conversation. Today, there's a manosphere of groups like men's rights activists and men going their own way. One example, Elaine, this week, a disturbing TikTok trend has boys and men joking about killing their romantic dates. We found dozens of eerie videos set to pop music, some on accounts with tens of thousands of dedicated views. I should note that CBS News has reached out to TikTok for more information.
Really disturbing to hear those details, as I said. Nicole, since 2014, attacks inspired by the incel movement have left dozens dead in the U.S. and Canada. What did the report reveal about the common thread among followers of this ideology?
Yeah, Elaine, the 26-page report by Secret Service took a deep dive into red flags predating a massacre at a hot yoga studio in Tallahassee, Florida that left 2 people dead, 4 injured back in 2018. Before taking his own life, the attacker was fired from multiple teaching jobs, barred from apartment buildings, and he once authored an 81-page revenge fantasy about a boy-turned serial killer. He was arrested 3 times for incidents of groping women in public, and his roommates called him Ted Bundy. His parents reported removing him from his niece's birthday party after he touched young girls. On the day of the shooting itself, he wrote in a final note that read in part, "If I can't find one decent female to live with, I will find many indecent females to die with." Authorities found that he had called the yoga studio beforehand. So while Secret Service says there's no one profile for these kinds of extremists, it's urging investigators to consider patterns of behavior and potential targets, since suspects often test the waters before staging an attack.
So, Nicole, if that's the case, what can communities do to help detect and thwart some of these tragedies?
Yeah, 4 words: behavioral threat assessment programs. This is see something, say something, kicked up a notch. These programs can be developed in workplaces, college campuses, local communities. Most programs rely on the public, and they are designed to detect and report early signs of a potentially dangerous person or situation. Elaine, they're not punitive, meaning they're intended to support those in distress before things escalate. Bottom line, if a person receives help sooner rather than later, they may be less likely to cause harm to themselves.
Well, so it's interesting to see that. 2 things to say about that. One, we're in not the eve, but the after the shoe drop, the Roe v. Wade being overturned. And it was interesting to me that this whole debate with that, there's no laws that tell a man what to do with their body, so this patriarchal society is still very much in control. And secondly, I think about all of the things over the years of, music and things like that in popular culture. It was more the cool or normal. When I think of like Eminem's one of my favorite rappers, but he was very much in that group, sounding like that, saying, "I'm gonna get rid of this woman. This isn't working." And then Ruby had a comment. There are men who want women that are out of the league to want them. So basically, there's kind of like a inability to cope, and that might be the whole thing, but that might be at least a part of it, that they have in their mind, I should get this kind of woman because I'm in power or I'm the man, and it's not happening. So they'll lash out and try to attack people. So thank you for sharing this. First of all, that was a great piece of information that a lot of people, I never heard incel. Well, I think I heard it before, I didn't know what it meant. So that actually broke it down for me. So thank you for that. But what does this mean for either mothers, fathers, kids? Like, what does this mean to you?
First of all, we have to stop saying that men are toxic. Toxic masculinity is a very, I really dislike that. I want to highlight positive masculinity, and I want men to understand what positive masculinity is. I want them to understand their intrinsic value beyond being a provider, beyond being a protector, and beyond their sexual conquest. So, how do we do that? We have to build up their humanity. And so, that is part of my mission. Really, quite honestly, that is my mission with being on your program and uh, talking about positive masculinity. I'm having a men's health summit on June 18th. And ultimately, that is the goal of that particular summit. We're going to talk about a lot of men's issues, but we're talking about them because we want to know that men's mental health is important. They are valued, and unfortunately, sometimes when we talk about mental health, men feel as if we are not talking to them. They think we're talking about the women or the kids or the teenagers, anybody else but them. And so it's very important that we specifically say men's mental health so that they know that their issues are going to be heard, how they feel about isolation, depression, PTSD, manhood in general. It's very important that they feel heard and that they have the
Yeah.
floor.
And this is like what Stephanie said a while ago. This is an old conversation because when we think about wars, my wife always says, if men would stop being in power, we stop having wars because it seems, well, not seems like every war has been started by a man at this point. So these things cover all parts of society, not just in your household. It's definitely a bad image of masculinity going on. So I'm glad you're saying toxic. We get that out the way. But this positive, let's focus on the good. So I know you get the summit on the 18th, but what are some tips or ideas people can do, whether they're a man or a woman, to help improve positive masculinity in their space?
Mhm. They can listen and they can support men who are being positive, productive citizens. We have a Ruby. Ruby, you are a boy mom. So I'm going to use you as an example. When your son is feeling distressed, depressed, or frustrated, don't tell him to suppress his feelings. Allow him to express his feelings, tease them out, and then support him um, in a productive way to act them out. I realize a lot of men have actions. So what does that look like? Maybe that doesn't include teaching him to punch something. Maybe he gets that out in a more creative way, like writing a song or drawing something like that. We have to get beyond teaching men to punch him, say, "Oh, I'm mad. Oh, I hate something." Not that that doesn't get out your aggression, but teach them other ways. It's okay to punch
Mm-hmm.
something. It's okay to be involved in sports. Yes, yes, yes. So please, nobody write me and say I'm trying to make a man or a woman. No, I'm not. But I am wanting men to um, identify with the humanity of it
Yeah.
all. And sometimes writing a song, sometimes uh, drawing something, sometimes dancing. I'm really
Go
happy
for a
with all
walk.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for a walk. All of those kinds of things are actually healthy ways to deal with their emotions. And God forbid, talk about it. And something very simple. And then listen. And then another thing that we as women can do is when a man is expressing his emotions, don't manipulate them or try to tell them what they are or try to overtalk his emotions. And then don't judge. Don't
Mm-hmm.
judge them. And this is something we all can do for one another.
Yeah.
We can listen. We can listen. Um, I grew up in a family where sometimes people told you how you feel, like what's wrong, and then you start to say it, and then all of a sudden they're telling me what I think. Quit telling me what I think. Listen, let me finish my statement. Why don't you? um I think that women sometimes do that to men when it comes to feelings. Now men often do that to women when they're trying to solve a problem or an idea,
Yeah.
but women do it to men when a man is finally gotten to the point where he's going to say something about how he feels, the mouth is open so fast he can't finish his thoughts. So silence is okay,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're not really adept at talking about your feelings. There's going to be like a break in the
Yeah.
conversation where he's kind of like looking up and he's like kind of huffing and puffing. It's just like, let him do all of that so he can find the word that connects to the emotion. And guess what? It might not be the right word. It's okay if it's not the right word. Don't be so exacting. Ask for
Mm-hmm.
examples of what that really means and what that really feels like, and when did they feel that particular emotion. So try to support versus take over. And men should do that for
Well,
other
I got a
men.
good comment. This will be a good thing for us to dig into real quick. Stephanie said, "Do you believe that it's a vicious cycle? Women are not getting love, so they withhold respect. And if so, who is responsible for stopping it, men or women?" So I think it's a comment earlier. We said men want respect from women
Mhm.
and love from men, but she's basically asking, if I'm understanding this right, women are not getting love, so they withhold respect. So whose honest is that on?
I think the person that knows that there's a problem. So if it's a man and you notice there's a problem, fix it. Do your part. If you're a
Okay.
if you're a woman and you see the problem, fix it. Do your part. I cannot control what someone else is going to do, but I can control me.
Mm-hmm.
And so since I'm going to a woman, I'm going to say I should do something, right?
There you go. So there you go, Stephanie. Each person has their part in that. But that's a good question. Though, 'cause it might be hard for some women to show respect when they don't get love. And then Ruby even said, "The woman, she's the one with the issues." Ruby's very blunt, like it's her. But
But
I think that's
I don't know that women are the only people with issues. I really, really, really do think that both women and men have a part in the positive masculinity journey, and I think that we have a part in creating the problem in
hmm
itself.
okay.
Okay.
She said if she is the issue, she abridged that. But I guess a question for this. So positive masculinity is kind of new. We're trying to get that under going under wraps and everything. Is positive femininity must be up and kicking, like very strong. Am I right in that
I
assessment or
think
not really?
I think the reason why there's not a current push for positive femininity is because the term toxic femininity is not really rolling off the the tongue these
Mm.
days. What is rolling off the tongue for about women is high value woman. You need you a high value woman. And so I won't even go down that avenue, but um, women are facing their own issues in society, but they're not currently fighting a battle on being toxic. But I will say toxic femininity does bubble up, and it is a problem just as much as toxic masculinity is. But really, it's toxic humanity showing up in both male and female forms. And
mm.
it's just, how is it done? So, um, women are I find a woman when women assault with their words, that's very bad. When men assault with their hands, that's very bad. When women use tears as a weapon and vulnerability as a weapon, that's very toxic. But
Mm-hmm.
when men use manipulation um, uh, as a weapon, that is very toxic. So a narcissist can show up either in a man or a woman. It can be overt or it can be covert. So toxic human behavior is toxic human behavior. The reason why I like to focus on positive femininity, I'm sorry, positive masculinity, is because it's something in society that is disconnected from humanity. See, positive femininity doesn't have a problem being disconnected from humanity and a human journey. But
Mm-hmm.
positive masculinity, it's disconnected from nurturing. It's disconnected from consoling. It's disconnected from the meekness that is associated with leadership, like being a servant leader. Somehow you are not a strong enough leader if you're doing those things. Okay,
Oh,
but
that's a
they're
whole other
meant.
rabbit hole. Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole. The servant leader versus the strong leader. But I do want to mention also that this might also not be as much of a problem because you see a lot more women's groups. Like you mentioned, these men groups are all negative, and not that every man group is negative, but there's far more examples of positive women events. I mean, if you saw in the last couple of days,
Hmm.
millions of women have protested Roe v. Wade like instantly.
Hmm.
Men don't have that necessarily. I can't think. I'm in a fraternity and we don't even move that fast to support each
Hmm.
other. So I think that's a big reason why the phrase is for men, not for women, because women have great networks of even just if they see each other in a grocery store, they, hey girl, what you got going on? Let me help you with the kid at the shopping cart or something. So I think if I could throw a tip, just men opening their arms a little more. I mean, kudos to my neighbor for saying, let's start a book club. He just moved in and said, hey, let's start a book club. Like, thank you. That was a cool idea. So things like that, I think if men are more open, and I struggle with it, but just that's what I think could help us if we just are open to, like you said, getting love from other men. If we're just open to it and just realizing that, you know what, I might need a good job from a guy sometimes, or a dap or a high five something, versus just for my kids and my wife.
Hmm. I have a upcoming book. It's not going to come out until um, next summer, okay? But that said, there is a term or acronym that I have in there, and it's called RACE. And it's this particular idea. Women, we have plenty of outlets that where we race, and it is where we replenish ourselves, where we
Hmm.
hold ourselves accountable, where we cleanse ourselves, and where we ignite one another. Okay?
Hmm.
There are plenty of places where we do that. But that's like a system. You got to have a system going. All right?
Hmm.
Men don't really have that so much.
Yeah, our replenishing is usually going to a ball game or a bar or something. It's not really
And it's not
replenishing. That's
really
just
replenishing.
that's
No,
covering it up.
exactly. Men congregate over sports and you grunt and eat the whole time. Okay,
I'm
no,
I'm not
you
a
grunt
I'm
and
not
you cheer.
no, I'm not a bar and sporting event kind of guy, so that's fine. I think the same thing is like, why do I want to go to a bar and just yell at the TV with you guys? I'm good. So I'm with you on that.
But it's an attempt at bonding, right? But what you're not doing at those events are really talking about the matters of your soul, talking about the matters
Yeah,
of your heart, talking about your ability to navigate the world. You're
this
not
is
doing
why they
that.
don't have this is why they don't have not bridal showers but groom showers, because I just be guys sitting around eating like, let's do a groom shower. Like, all we're gonna do is eat. We're not gonna talk. We're bridal showers talking the whole time.
you know and something else that I think that would help positive masculinity is some kind of tradition. We've really gotten away from the tradition of what it is to be a man, and um, acknowledging when a man stops being a boy and starts being a man. American culture just really lacks that. That would be helpful. And so, not only just the tradition, but the process of getting there. If we can get back to those simple practices, we would go a long way.
I love it. Well, I'm putting the website all over this the whole time. Do my YouTube
Thank
dance.
you.
Please
Thank
check
you.
out
Thank
Coach
you.
Erica's website. The
It's going to lead
event is
them right
June
to my,
19th.
yeah, it's going to lead them right directly to my show, Epic Understanding. Subscribe. I got a lot of good stuff there. As a matter of fact, no, it's not about men. Tonight we're going to be celebrating women. I mean, gosh, Mother's Day is,
Hmm.
this weekend. So, of course, we're going to be celebrating women. But, oh, hold on. What's the date? This month, we're going to talk to a gentleman about his experience and how it affected him um, with sexuality. And it is using sexual trophies um, that are actually using sexual trophies that are actually a trauma. We're going to talk to
Mm,
We're
that
going
sounds
to talk
interesting.
to Dr. Rice about that. So that's something important for us to talk about because that is sexual trophies are not manhood. That's not masculinity. Quit defining
But
a man by his
everything says it
penis.
is. Yep, it's a big problem.
Right. Stop defining men by their penis. They're more than those things. But that's how people define men. And they're
Yeah,
celebrated for their sexual conquest. Be a man, go
unfortunately.
get her. Ah!
Unfortunately, we got a lot. We got your work cut out for you, Erica. Well, we got Stephanie said thanks for the great information, and Ruby said thank you as well. Thank you, ladies, for the comments. Please share this with if you have a male in your life, a female that needs some help with this, a boy, mom, auntie, whoever, uncle, anybody, because this is information I think, especially in the black culture. Um, Masculinity is even stronger in the black culture. Being strong is a very big thing in our culture from our ancestors, and it was good back then. But as you mentioned, being a man in the 70s is different than a man in 2022. So things have changed. So anybody that you say, hey, struggles with this, share this episode with them, and then please check out CoachEricaLove.com to get some more information about that event. And tell a man good job today. I'm not saying women are not doing good, but just hey. But I struggle to answering that question, my intrinsic, and I think I'm a pretty good speaker for the most part, so I struggle with that. So if I struggle with it, and I'm not perfect or anything, but that means anybody out there, regular average Joe, tell them good job or something. Maybe it'll help. You never know. Too many of these stories from the incel thing was always people said they couldn't, they were awkward socially and not showing love. So maybe you telling a guy good job will save something later on. Who knows? But
Hopefully.
we, anything else for parting words for people, Erica?
You know what? Just thank you for coming by. I really enjoyed my time here. Thank you so much, Daryl, for having me. Thank you, audience, for hanging out with me. And hashtag we are better together.
Boom, I love it. Well, let me put this outro video, please, folks. We appreciate you. We will catch you next time on Business of Benefits.